Welcome back to another episode of the Live Your Yes Life podcast. We bring you channeled thoughts, discussion, and interviews on what it takes to go from dreaming and wishing to actively living your yes life. So in this episode, I'm going to take you through the process of creating your own year-end review. Now, you can do this for personal goals. You can do this for business goals. You may already have a practice for business, but maybe you haven't done it personally. Either way, this is such a transformative way to bring your year into completion. So you guys, I just led a workshop in The Circle. If you're not familiar, The Circle is our 12-month membership program where our focus is to come into this group. It's really a coaching program where the entire focus for the year is living your yes life. So you have a whole year of coaching and support. You get one-on-one coaching, weekly workshops, planning sessions so that you can truly transform your life and live the life that you most want to be living, whatever your version of yes is. And one of the workshops I taught, which was earlier this week, was this process of doing a year-end review. And I had so much feedback from it around how transformative it was for people that I wanted to bring it to you here on the podcast as well. And I'm going to give you some ideas of how you could do your own personal year in review and why you might want to do this. So, I heard this quote the other day and I wrote it down. I wanted to share it with you guys. It's by a man named John Dewey. The quote is, "We do not learn from experience. We learn from reflecting on an experience." And I think that is just so true. Like, I think the power of reflection is highly underrated because when we take a moment to just reflect, even just getting into the present moment and just asking yourself, like, how am I feeling right now? Has the ability to give us so much information. I think we get so busy just running from one thing to the next. And yet if we could just stop and reflect, even if we did this process at the end of the day, try this for 30 days. It is so life-changing to actually slow down enough because so many of our answers are within inside of us. And if you've been listening to this podcast, you know I'm a big believer in this process, but I wanted to show you how you could do this for an entire year and how transformative this really is. Rather than just jump into goal setting for the next year, if you go through this process, you are going to have so much insight about what you learned from this year that you can actually build into next year so that you don't fall into, maybe some of the same traps that slowed you down this year or kept you from hitting some of your goals this year, as well as really celebrating how far you've come fuels you into creating even more. So let's dive in. I want to take you through, if you want to choose to do your own year-end review, I highly recommend giving yourself some space and time to do this. I would say like at least an hour, and you could take even more time if you want to have more time, but really just taking a moment to be uninterrupted with this. So if you want, you could light a candle, you could have your favorite beverage, you could put on some soft music, like whatever feels good for you and just kind of gets you in that focused space is perfect. And the first thing I always start with in a year-end review is your wins. Start with your wins, your celebrations, your highlights for the year. Now, I know it may be hard to think about, I can't remember what I did in January. There's two ways that I go about this part of the process, and this takes a while. So this is where we have to create a little bit of space. The first way that I love to do this is to actually go through the photos on my phone. So, we're all snapping pictures. We always have the phone in our hand, and you can sort by month. So I would just go back to January in your phone, grab the album or however it sorts it for starting with January, and start to scroll through your phone and look for those highlight moments. Now, one of the things I like to do, because I think it's a great way to also clean and clear out your phone, but you could create a new album on your phone and just title it, like in this case, it would be 2023 highlights. And then as you go through this process, take whatever photos you really want to make sure you remember from this year and add those to your 2023 highlight album. It's so great at the end of the year because you'll have If you do this year after year, it's like you have these beautiful albums of all your special memories, and then you can just delete the rest. There's so much on our phones we don't need, so many of those photos we never take the time to clean up. So I highly recommend doing this and just start back in January, scroll through each month, save those highlighted photos. What's going to happen as you go through this process is you're going to remember so many moments you thought about. You're also going to notice that this year was way more successful than you probably thought it was. You're going to see those special moments. You're going to see those celebrations. You're going to see some of the fun things that you did and that you really want to celebrate within yourself or maybe within other people around you. So start there, go through your highlights. And, maybe you want to have a journal next to you where you really want to write out some of those wins, some of those celebrations. And another way that you can do this is you can go back through your day planner or your calendar and just really look at, okay, what were some of the things I did this year? You could look at some of the business wins or work wins. You could look at some of maybe like the travel that you did, if there were any special moments, anniversaries you celebrated or birthdays or, whatever it was, just like remembering those wins, those celebrations, those beautiful moments. We always want to start there. And this sometimes is so emotional. I had people telling me like, oh, I was so emotional going through this process. Like there were things I had completely forgotten about. You could even make one of those, like one of the books, like there's just like a bunch of online companies I know, or even like Walgreens and different places you can make these books where it's like, you could even make a photo book for the year if you're someone who likes to have your photos printed out, keep it on your coffee table for the year, like whatever feels good for you. But I would start there. So that's number one, go through your highlights and wins. Number two, grab your journal. And I want you to reflect on what were your plans, your goals, and your dreams for 2023. Like when you think about where you were, the starting line you were standing at this past January, what were those goals and dreams that you had for the end of the year that you really wanted to be at? So just write those down and you just want to ask yourself, did you reach them? Like which of those goals and dreams did you reach? You want to really be in celebration for that. And which ones didn't you reach? Now, here's the thing. It's really, really, really important that you stay out of judgment on this. When you start to look at maybe some of the goals that didn't happen or the things that didn't happen, please don't get into a cycle of judgment. The minute we start judging ourselves, it takes us out of curiosity. I want you instead to just stay curious. This is the power of reflection. We're not here to beat ourselves up. We're here to reflect. We're here to take the lessons, because the truth is the lessons are the gold. And even those goals that you didn't hit, they still served a purpose. Maybe you didn't hit them yet because there was a lesson that you needed to learn first. And so when we reflect, this is why I love reflection. When we take the time to reflect and we take the time to learn the lesson, we've got it. We don't need to repeat it again. It's like we don't need to circle around the same old mountain again because we got it. We got the lesson. We got the learning. We can take that into next year, and that puts us in a way more powerful place to start to hit our goal. So just write down, what were those goals and dreams? Did you hit them? Which ones did you hit? Which ones did you not? The point is just kind of getting what's so, right? We just want to look at the facts. Okay, here's where we're at. Then the next thing I would do is just look at what were some of the challenges. What were the challenges? What were the lessons? What were those, as you reflect upon the goals that you didn't hit, what did you learn? What did you discover that really got in your way? And as I was teaching this workshop this week, a lot of the things, there were kind of some themes that came up for people. And a big theme that came up was distractions. A lot of people said I got distracted as I went throughout the year and I just kind of lost my way a little bit on the goal. So I was like, great, we're going to build a plan into your 2024 goals so that the distractions don't get in your way, right? We want to actually build a plan around it. So it's important for us to reflect so we can see. Another thing that came up was just being really busy, getting busy with other things that I think kind of goes along with distractions a little bit. And then, some people said that it was self-doubt or it was fear that kind of crippled them or got in their way from reaching those big goals. So just notice what it is for you that, or maybe it was not knowing how. Maybe it was that your plan, you didn't have really a plan to get there. Or your plan wasn't the right plan to get there, right? It could have been a lot of things. I find really much less often is it the plan, and more often it's getting stopped by fear or self-doubt or, getting stuck. And a reminder, we always talk about this here, but you just need to keep remembering it's one step at a time, right? That next right action. So something I always say is don't move the goal just move the timeline if you need to. So if you got to the end of this year and you didn't hit the goal, which by the way, we're not all the way to the end of the year yet, so don't give up, there's still time. But if you did get to the end of the year and you didn't hit the goal, don't forget the goal. Don't eliminate the goal and just be like, oh, well, I guess that's not for me, right? Just move your timeline. You have so much more learning behind you now that this process is going to help you to really go again and hit it for this year. So I like to look at, what really did get in my way, like really reflect on the year. What was in the way? What slowed you down? Where did you get distracted? Where did you get busy? Where did you get stuck trying to figure out how? And then we can also do the same thing for the goals you did hit. Like what went really well, right? What did you implement that actually, really worked for you this year and really supported you? Because you want to make sure that you're implementing that again for next year. And then I would just ask yourself, like, okay, for the goals you didn't hit, how can I refine this goal? How can I refine the target? So, I would double check, like, does this still resonate for me? Is this still something that feels aligned with my soul? Is this something that feels like this is really true and authentically, a goal that's going to help me become more of who I'm meant to be? Or is this goal something that I actually didn't really care about? It wasn't even really resonating for me. I just kind of picked it because I thought I should. In that case, that's when I would say, like, okay, let's refine the goal. If it's not resonating anymore, what's true for you? Let's go again. And so these are just some ways that you can reflect and discover, like, what would you do differently? Now in hindsight, as you reflect on the year and you look at what got in the way, what would you do differently? Journal it out, talk about it, write out what would be different for you. What support would have helped you? That's another question, is like, what would have supported you? What support would have really helped you get there? Notice maybe what you put in place for the year ahead. Another question to ask yourself is like, what did you need more of? Or what did you need less of? Right? That's a good way to look at it. By simply asking yourself some of these questions, it can be really supportive. And then what is still unclear? Just notice what is still unclear. What answers do you need? Where is it that you need to have a little bit more information or something like that? And as you go through this process, you are going to start to see that what you want for 2024 starts to take shape just by way of considering this and walking yourself through it. If you guys wanted to do this in real time with this podcast, you could certainly hit pause and you could journal it out. And then when you're ready to go, click another button. That's a great way to go through this if you wanted to do this kind of right along with me in a sense. Some other things that I would ask yourself is like, how was your work-life harmony this year? Did you feel like you had harmony, like you had a good blend, between the time you spent on work and the time that you spent doing the things that are really important to you, those relationships, having solo time as you went through the year? So just notice what that's like for you. And is there anything that you need to shift or change in 2024 so that you feel like you have more harmony? And that, I had a lot of people in the workshop say like, oh, I really felt like I put a little bit too much focus on work and some of my not so much time on, some of the things I wanted to do. One of the things I always say, so when you start to look at your 2024 planning, is I always recommend building your calendar from life to work. So as you look at next year, put your vacations in first, put your time off first, put your date nights in, put, whatever, if time with the kids, time with family, like take those big important things and make sure before you schedule anything work-wise that those things get in the calendar, and then build around that instead of the other way around. So another question I ask myself when I go through this process is, what was the biggest lessons that you really learned this year? What do you know now that you didn't know back in January? What shifted? What changed? These can be like soul life lessons, or they could be something specifically around work. Maybe it was a skill that you built, or often our lessons come in the things that don't actually work out quite the way we thought that they would. And that's okay, right? You just want to notice if I look back, was there a theme? Was there like a way that I deepened, a big lesson that I learned, some way that I really grew? And how will this help you next year, right? If you really think about like taking this lesson and now that you've got it, how is this going to really empower you to build your version of a yes life next year. You could really consider even doing like a bullet journal or a vision board, something like that, that really supports you as you're walking yourself through this process to prepare for next year. And I would just spend some time, you guys, going through. You could add more to it. You could certainly Google, ways to do a year-end review. This is just how I like to do it. And I like to give myself a good amount of time. And I always do this before I do my yearly planning or my yearly visioning or goal mapping for 2024, because it just gives me so much more information. So if you guys loved this episode, let me know if you're going to do your own year-end review and how you love this process. If you're going to go through the photos on your phone, I highly recommend not skipping that step, you guys, because it's really, really powerful. And be sure to check out The Circle. This is our yearly membership program where I mentioned it at the top of this podcast. But if you would love to have this kind of support guiding you for an entire year, from week to week, having personal coaching sessions, being able to plug into workshops like the one that I just mentioned and walked you through some pieces of it today, then consider joining us inside The Circle. We are now enrolling. We have some spots available for new members, and it is for a fraction of the cost of high-level coaching with all of the support. So you can reach out. You can send us a message if you want more information. I'll link the information below, but as always, you can reach out to me personally. You can reach out to Kaela. You can reach out to any member of our team and ask for information. We'll be happy to provide it with you. So I would love to see you join us inside The Circle. Right now, at the time that I'm recording this, we do have a bonus session that we're going to be offering, something you don't want to miss, happening in January. And we'll let you know what that is. If you happen to join, our team will be reaching out, letting you know more about what that is. Or if you have a question about what that is before you sign up, just definitely reach out and we'll share all the details with you there. But it is super juicy and you're not going to want to miss it. So let us know if you have questions, you guys. Otherwise, I hope I will see you inside and we will have you set up to truly create your yes life in 2024. As always, please share this episode with a friend if you think someone would like it. Please subscribe so that you never miss an episode. Kaela and I are here every single week, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.